welcome to our conference. I'm excited and thrilled to announce that Warsaw Freedom Institute, an independent Polish think tank, is launching its operations in the United States. Why we are doing this? Because I believe that Poland is at a historical moment. We achieved enormous economic growth, becoming one of the most attractive places in the world to invest and to live. Over the last 35 years, Poland has reached the highest growth per capita among all OECD countries. Now we are one of those nations which allocates the biggest part of its budget to security. But at the same time, war is at our doorstep. This makes the situation both challenging and full of opportunity. We Poles and Americans have a long tradition of cooperation. From Puławski and Kościuszko to Polish soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder with American troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. Without Polish-American cooperation, Ukrainians wouldn't be able to survive the first months of Russian aggression. I'm happy that we are all here, and I wish you excellent discussions. Thank you to all our panelists, to our sponsor, to our partners, and to all you participants. And let me now introduce Jim Mazurkiewicz, the professor of Texas A&M, the largest American university. Jim is chairing Warsaw Freedom Institute board. Jim, over to you.
Hello, my name is Jim Mazurkiewicz. As chairman of the board of the Warsaw Freedom Institute, we too welcome each of you to the Warsaw Freedom Institute inaugural conference. The title of the conference, Poland-USA Relations in a New Era, Security and Business, is most timely and a first-of-its-kind event dedicated to exploring the future of U.S.-Poland cooperation through the lenses of security, energy, business, and shared democratic values. The Warsaw Freedom Institute, based in the United States, operates as a vital extension of the well-established Freedom Institute located in Warsaw, Poland. Our mission is to strengthen the geostrategic alliance between the United States and Poland, fostering shared values of freedom, democracy, and security through the leadership development and collaborative initiatives. Our vision is to establish a significant intellectual presence here in America, supporting Poland's role as a pivotal European leader and developing leaders who can navigate and influence the 3 C's initiative. Today, more than ever, we need more opportunity to share information, provide various insights, and dispel myths by creating a dialogue exchanging expertise. This is crucial for driving change, solving societal challenges, and gaining a better understanding of the issues. As a result, it fosters understanding, tolerance, and cooperation, which are essential for building peaceful societies. We encourage you to join our institute as a sponsor focusing on empowering the next generation of leaders. To quote Sir Francis Bacon, knowledge is power. Thank you to our speakers, our sponsors, and for your participation in this inaugural event.
Thank you, Jim. You could see these beautiful flags of Texas and Poland, but we are going to cooperate with Texas, but also we want to cooperate with all American states, from east to the west and from north to the south. One important information, you can all ask questions. Send us questions, we'll choose them and we'll ask to our guests. And now, finally, our first guests. All our guests are important, but the first 2 are the most important because they are both responsible for our security. So let me introduce Lieutenant General Karol Dymanowski, who is with us in studio. Welcome, General.
Thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon and good morning for those who are joining us from the United States.
Thank you for being with us. And this is the first keynote speech. I'm so thrilled. And so the floor is yours.
Thank you. So first and foremost, thank you very much for the invitation for this opening conference of the Warsaw Freedom Institute. It is a great pleasure to be among so many experts to discuss cooperation between Poland and our strategic partner, the United States. And today we are going to debate about different aspects of the Polish-American cooperation, but as the Vice Chief of Defense, not surprisingly, I will focus on defense and, to be precise, on deterrence and defense, which nowadays should be a cross-governmental and cross-societal effort with overlapping military and civilian responsibilities. So that is why I do believe, I do hope that even though given by myself by a soldier, my speech, my opening remarks will be relevant and interesting for all participants of this conference. But because of this complexity of today's deterrence and defense, and conscious of time, I will offer just a few, but in my opinion, essential considerations, and I will do it through the prism of three elements, 3 C's: capabilities, communication, and credibility, which are the main pillar of deterrence and, if necessary, defense. So let's start with the first C, capabilities. Despite growing numbers and capabilities in every military domain, the Polish armed forces still need support from the US and other allies, especially when it comes to some critical and decisive capabilities. For example, deep precision strike, strategic targeting, strategic intelligence, and electronic warfare. At the same time, Poland gives an important contribution to the US and allied deterrence and defense in at least 3 areas. So the first one is logistics and infrastructure. So Poland is essential for enablement and reinforcement of any US or allied operations on the eastern flank of NATO. Secondly, force projection. So Poland is crucial for fast force deployment to the most exposed regions and against the most dangerous and the most likely military threats here in Europe. And finally, military potential. So Poland has the biggest military force along the eastern flank of NATO and one of the biggest in Europe, so we can provide quantity and quality to support US and other allies. So to put it briefly, our cooperation should cover the entire spectrum of military capabilities to enhance reach, speed, accuracy, mobility, survivability, and lethality of our forces. And with that, I would like to move on to the second C, communication. So basically, broadly speaking, communication can be done in 2 ways. Firstly, by words, so verbal. So it is a strategic communication to our allies, to our societies, and our opponents. And secondly, by actions, so a physical communication. And peacetime, it will be done mainly by military exercises and force posture. And we need American support and cooperation both in verbal and physical communication. So we need clear messaging, realistic pledges, but even more, we need US military presence here in Poland to demonstrate our readiness and unity. And finally, our cooperation in the field of capabilities and communication should produce the last and the ultimate pillar, which is credibility. And credibility is not a physical phenomenon, so it cannot be measured, but most importantly, it cannot be divided. So if you lose credibility in one region, you may also lose it in other parts of the globe for other allies and for other adversaries. So Poland and NATO need the US, but at the same time, the US still needs Poland and other allies to maintain credibility here in Europe and thereby elsewhere in the world. So in conclusion, I would like to underline that the US is by far the most important member and a bedrock of NATO, and hence our Polish strategic ally. Therefore, Poland, with its growing economic and military potential, will continue security cooperation with the United States, and we can support the US armed forces with regards to the 3 C's. So capabilities, communication, and at the end of the day, credibility. And here in Poland, in Warsaw, with the General Staff, we fully understand that in the face of the current very dynamic and challenging security situation and environment, complacency is not an option any longer. So we cannot stick with fallacious assumption that there is no threat and we have time. We must take some audacious actions and decisions, expedite and intensify our efforts to deter, and if necessary, in the worst case scenario, to defend. And we should continue to do it together with the US and our allies. Because as Winston Churchill once said, there is only one thing worse than fighting with allies, and that is fighting without them. And that concludes my speech. One more time, thank you very much for the invitation and for having me. Have a great conference with inspiring speeches and discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General, but you will stay with us for some time. We will be able to talk. But now, since we have a Polish general, we will ask American general for its keynote speech. We move now to Brussels, where there is NATO headquarters, but there is American general there, Major General Matthew van Wanegen, SHAPE's Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations. General, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and friends of the Warsaw Freedom Institute, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. In this dynamic global landscape, the strength and resilience of our relationships are more essential than ever. We must seek every opportunity across all elements of society to collaborate and build trust. So I applaud the Warsaw Freedom Institute for everything you are doing to strengthen our relationships between the United States and Poland. Your efforts promote the leadership and discourse that will help us navigate our shared challenges. Challenges we've been navigating together for centuries. Our bonds were even rooted in the founding of our great nation when General Kazimierz Pulaski, after fighting for Poland's independence, came to America and fought alongside the Continental Army. A Polish Army officer committed to pursuing the same freedoms for both nations, who ultimately gave his life for the American cause. Forged in the American Revolution, these close military ties remain today, which we see at every level, from our tactical formations to our unique strategic capabilities, from our junior cavalry scouts to our most senior defense officials. We foster relationships through the National Guard State Partnership Program for over 3 decades, with dozens of training events and exchanges between the state of Illinois and Poland each year. And hearkening back to our roots, I think it's telling that Illinois still celebrates Kazimierz Pulaski Day every March. Service members are also guests in Poland. Camp Kukushki in Poznan is home to the U.S.-American 5th Corps, the United States Army's forward-based corps headquarters. We forward deployed a rotational divisional headquarters to Poland in support of Operation Atlantic Resolve since 2015, with brigade combat teams, aviation units, and logistics elements. We have a generation of soldiers, especially within our armored forces, who have served in Poland, trained alongside Polish counterparts, and have been welcomed in the Polish communities with open arms. This past November, at a ceremony with President Duda, we highlighted the capabilities of the Aegis Ashore missile defense system in Warsaw, operated by U.S. troops on Polish soil. Under the command and control of NATO, this system protects the U.S. and allies throughout the Euro-Atlantic area. So the Polish-American military connection remains strong at every echelon, bound together by years of history and a shared commitment to our common values. This relationship also fits within the broader backdrop of NATO and the European security, with Poland just having celebrated 26 years in the alliance this past March. Since joining in 1999, it didn't take long for Poland to demonstrate its value to the alliance, deploying forces to Kosovo and consistently providing sizable contingents in Afghanistan and participating in the AWACS early warning mission. Then 3 years ago, the strategic landscape was fundamentally altered with Russia's full-scale invasion of the Ukraine. Throughout this geopolitical upheaval, Poland recognized the urgency of the threat and acted for the Polish population situated on NATO's eastern flank. The risk was real, it was close to home, so when the alliance shifted focus from crisis management operations back to collective defense, Poland emerged as a leader. In recent years, Poland has undertaken the most ambitious military modernization program in Europe, acquiring new equipment, expanding the Polish armed forces and strength, hardening national resilience with territorial defense forces. This all ensures that Poland is not just defending its own borders, but reinforcing NATO's deterrence posture along the eastern flank. Critically, these defense modernization efforts are backed by concrete investments as well. Poland is leading the alliance in spending a percentage of the GDP, the first ally to reach 4% in decades and heading towards 5%. Deterrence is not only as strong as the forces behind it, the defense expenditures is improving forces' readiness for their warfighting mission. Poland is also working alongside its neighbors so that the allies can rapidly move forces and equipment in case of crisis or conflict, in coordination with the Joint Support and Enabling Command, the Netherlands, Germany, and Poland, who helped establish the first military mobility corridor, reducing bureaucracy and logistical barriers for our formations. And Poland has been one of the most vocal and active supporters of the Ukraine, providing military aid, humanitarian assistance, and logistical support. It has also taken in over 1 million Ukrainian refugees, demonstrating a firm commitment to European security. While we can take great pride in the strength of the Polish-American relations and Polish contributions to NATO, we must also stay vigilant in facing the challenges ahead. There is no replacement for hard power. We must all continue modernizing our individual nations' capabilities so that collectively, NATO remains the strongest, most effective military alliance in the history of the world. Poland's leadership in this effort is invaluable. It is showing us not only the resolve to strengthen defense of its own sovereign territory, but also the willingness to enhance collective defense across the entire alliance. At the same time, we have opportunities to continue deepening Polish-American cooperation and our military's interoperability with our own defense industry and through the Warsaw Freedom Institute's initiative to create ties throughout civil society. Our nation's bond is just not a matter of convenience. It's built on shared history, shared sacrifice, and shared commitment to freedom and security. Together, we will continue to uphold the values that define both our nations and ensure that future generations live in a world that is safer, more secure, and free. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, General, for your excellent speech. So we had two keynote speeches by two generals, Polish and American, and now we will be able to take live with both of them. But I'm not alone in the studio. I'm joined by Marek Magierowski, former Polish ambassador to the US and now the director of the Strategy for Poland program at Freedom Institute in Warsaw.
Good morning and good afternoon.
Andrew Michta, senior fellow of Atlantic Council, and our lecturer of our leadership school in Poland.
Good afternoon and good morning.
And we have a General Demanowski already. We have already talked, and I believe we will be joined in a minute by General Matthew van Wagenen. And I have we already connected. Good afternoon, because I think good afternoon because General is in Brussels. So I will start with first question to both of you generals. Well, we mentioned the historical ties, which are, of course, very strong. And while we hope that NATO will remain strong and our allies will remain strong, political dynamics can shift. Given these uncertainties, how shall we build a robust military partnership between US and Poland? General Demanowski.
Thank you very much for the question. Before I start, hello, Mark. Very good to see you again. Thank you very much for joining me and helping me out with this, answering these tricky questions. So first I would like to echo what I already said in my opening remarks. I think that we have at least 3 pillars along which we should develop our cooperation, both with the US and in NATO. So that will be capabilities, so building up military capabilities. And this is much more than just military part of the house, because it should cover also the technological cooperation and industrial cooperation, very important. Then, of course, the communication part, which is extremely important. So this is both strategic communication, which shall be coordinated and coupled with the proper force posture and military exercises. And finally, as I said, credibility, which is the utmost and the most important element of this deterrence and defense here in Poland for the US and I believe for the entire NATO. And as always, an extremely important element is a personal and social cooperation. And we have been doing that with the US for a couple of years, and we should continue, because the people are the most important element of this cooperation. The people are not in organization, people are organization. That's why I'm stressing this element.
General van Wagenen, how do you see that?
Hey, well, first of all, again, thanks for bringing me in live. It's good to see Dr. Michta there. Carol, good to see you. You know, I think the strength militarily between the relationship between Polish military forces and the U.S., I would offer up, is at an all-time high. But like anything, like in marriage, you got to sustain that and you got to continue that. So I think the most important things over the next 12 to 24 months is that the U.S. forces that are rotational in Poland, some of them full-time in Poznan, continue to train collectively under the NATO defense plans, building readiness, both not only between Poland and the United States, but also for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And I think the two premier forces of the United States and the U.S., have a unique advantage because of a long history over the past 7 to 8 years as the U.S. has committed more rotational forces into Poland. And that's both at the strategic level, to integrated air missile defense, all the way down to the tactical level. So I think the opportunities are endless. And I think the work by U.S. FIPCOR and some of the other full-timers over there, we're going to see even stronger commitments to each other. Thank you.
You mentioned that we should train the rotational forces in Poland. But in Poland, there is a robust discussion about establishing permanent American forces in Poland. What is your opinion about that, General van Wanegen? And of course, then General.
So I think from a U.S. standpoint, not speaking for the U.S. Army in this, they've been very clear that the rotational model that's in Poland right now is the one that will continue. The exception to that is some permanently established command and control that exists over at Poznan. So I think the current model, and I will tell you, it works. It brings readiness. The most effective thing it does is it allows forces to rotate into Poland, to establish the relationships. That's what we don't want to do if we go into crisis. Understand the terrain, understand the environment. So I think the rotational model is advantageous to both Poland and the United States, with the exception of some exquisite capabilities like command and control that exist in Poznan.
General Dymowski?
Well, of course, first and foremost, Matt, thank you very much for all the US troops we have currently in Poland. And yes, even though this is a rotational model, every day we have a few thousand of American troops here in Poland. So it is perceived that a permanent presence of US troops. Of course, ideally, we like to have much more and on a daily basis, on a permanent basis, but we fully understand the commitment and the bandwidth of the American forces. And the model we currently have is working very good. Of course, there is always some place to improve, especially when it comes to the infrastructure. That includes not only proposition and stocks, but also training infrastructure for the American troops. Plus, we shouldn't forget about other domains, because most of the time we focus on the land domain, but we have also American presence in the air domain, in the cyber domain, and in the information domain, which is not less important than this physical boots on the ground. As I said, this is extremely important to build this relationship and preparing the infrastructure.
I'll ask another difficult, a little bit political question, which I know that I should rather ask politicians than generals, but since I have this opportunity, let me ask you if Poland should be considered for participation in NATO nuclear sharing program. General Dymowski.
Indeed, very tough and difficult question.
A very ballistic question.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, very ballistic question. And it is always a very sensitive issue to debate about the nuclear posture. But I believe that in the face of very aggressive Russian nuclear rhetoric, we, NATO, we should reconsider our nuclear posture. I'm not saying that it should cover all the nations and all the frontline nations, but I think we'd at least reconsider our posture, and we should prepare maybe some other options for communicating our deterrence and defense in the nuclear, the highest level in this escalation ladder. And because Russia has deployed recently nuclear weapons in the Kaliningrad region, in Belarus, I think it is fair for us, for Poles, to ask for something more from NATO and try to think about expanding this nuclear umbrella. But still, we have this nuclear umbrella already, as we are a member of NATO, and I know that is very sensitive and highly political issue to debate on, but I think it is something we should discuss, and this debate is very necessary, because even a debate is kind of a signal to the other side that we are thinking and we are talking about it.
General van Wanegen, shall we expand the nuclear umbrella over Poland?
You know, so first of all, I'm down here. I live in Mons. That's the military headquarters for SAC here. The political headquarters is up in Brussels. They would be better probably poised to ask that question since it is political. But I will offer this up to you. It kind of expands on what Carol just said. You know, we have a nuclear deterrent in NATO that is ready and that covers the entire alliance. So it exists right now. The alliance is covered by the nuclear deterrent that is exercised, that has plans against it. So I think as it exists right now, it works. Where if it was to be expanded, where that goes, that definitely sits with the North Atlantic Council. I really couldn't comment on that.
Thank you. Marek?
Since we are conducting this conversation in a very specific geopolitical context, we're facing the war in Ukraine basically on our doorstep. I have a very specific and maybe a little bit ticklish question to General van Wanegen. By the way, it's a pleasure to meet you and to converse with you. General, during my stint as Polish ambassador to the US, I had, as you can imagine, numerous meetings with the American military. And I was invariably impressed by their competence, their experience, and their expertise on contemporary Russia. I was sometimes, believe me or not, pleasantly flabbergasted by their familiarity with the Russian culture, sometimes even language. So many of them spoke excellent Russian. My question to you would be, when we will see politicians in the US, and especially in some Western European countries, who would understand Russia as extraordinarily as the American generals?
Yeah, that's quite the question there. I think when you start talking about the Russian IQ, particularly at the military level, and I'll talk for the military level, inside of NATO, inside of many of the nations, I would offer the IQ of understanding both not only Russian military doctrine and strategy, how the politics is linked to it, understanding the Kremlin. I would offer you 2 to 3 years ago, it was at a very low level in general across the entire alliance. I think with the reinvasion of the Ukraine, the evolution now is we go back into collective defense for the alliance against an agreed upon threat from 32 nations, and that's Russia and terror groups. We've seen the IQ and the understanding of how Russia does business, both militarily and also in their destabilization campaigns that are ongoing right now. I think it's really went up quickly. I understand what you're saying there in the political level, but I also think it's incumbent upon military leaders at all levels to help educate their appropriators, their ministers, their leaders. So some of that's incumbent upon the military to help them understand what's going on in the Ukraine right now, the attrition warfare there, how warfare has advanced so quickly. So some of that's incumbent upon not only the generals, but at all levels to educate their elected leaders. Thank you.
Andrew, would you like to ask?
Well,
again?
first of all, both gentlemen, General Dymanovsky, General Van Wagenen, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be present here at this conference. Greatly appreciate that. As you know, I've spent a lot of time working with the U.S. military and our allies in the theater, and I was always struck by how working together builds personal relationships. Could both of you maybe comment on what lessons have we learned for how the Polish and the American military cooperate from those years now of working together, especially in the context of the war in Ukraine? Because as General Dymanovsky said, you know, institutions, including the military, are really about the people who make them work. So where do you see the greatest strength in the Polish-American military cooperation? And even if you could bring it to an individual level, not just the unit or leadership level, because I think that's what makes people stand up for each other. So if you don't mind, Matt, let me start with you, comment on that, and I'll turn to General Dymanovsky.
Yeah, Andrew, it's a great question. It might be the most important one. I think the military relationships. Now, listen, as we know, I'm an Army officer, I'm a NATO officer, but you know, these relationships started almost 2 decades ago in places like Afghanistan with Task Force White Eagle on Highway 1 in Ghazni. You know, I was there. One of my DCGs at the time, you know, was a Polish general. Many of these relationships has transcended. Carol's a friend of mine. We both served at SHAPE together. We both worked together in deterrence and defense on a daily basis. You know, one of my peers, Adam Yokes, who commands Polish 2 Corps in Krakow, we served together for 18 months. We served together in the beginning of the crisis and the reinvasion of the Ukraine. These relationships are critical because what it allows us to do is pick up the phone and have conversations and work through issues. And I could go down the line of, you know, many Polish generals that I'm friends with that I converse with on a regular basis. But these are the essential relationships that you can't, they can't be enacted during a crisis. These are the relationships, if we do go into a crisis, they're going to have the contact points to exchange information and understand it. Many others won't have. And I will tell you, even down to the tactical level, our tactical commanders that come into Poland rotationally, you know, the relationships they build there, many of those commanders and officers return. They're essential. And what's allowed me to do is understand Poland, understand the culture, and understand if we needed to go into crisis or conflict, how to defend Poland. So great question, Andrew. I appreciate you asking that.
Thank you. General?
Yeah, I think these personal relations are just priceless. And at the beginning of our membership in NATO, we got, and we are still receiving, a great support from the US personnel. And we had very careful, steep learning curve at the very beginning. Now I think that there are more equal partners in discussion. But first and foremost, we have learned a lot from the US personnel about the culture and philosophy of NATO and the Western military at the very beginning. That is extremely important element. Then we got a lot of support when it comes to the training and experience with using the military equipment, because most of our equipment has been procured in the US. So it is extremely important to get the support from the US personnel. And of course, these relations we have established with common mission, with common working, are just prized, because then we can speed up all the processes. Of course, we are soldiers, so we have to stick with the rules and procedures. When we can speed up the processes because we know each other, we just can pick up the phone and have a direct conversation, iron out any differences, and move ahead, which is extremely important, especially now in a very dynamic and challenging environment. So this is extremely important, and it is just priceless when I'm talking about the support we have been receiving from the US personnel.
Thank you, General.
We have received a question from a gentleman from Żnin, the city of Żnin. Mr. Robert asked both of you, how do you assess Poland's role as a logistical and operational hub for supporting Ukraine? General Dymanowski.
I think that the Polish role is just critical, not because of the sheer geography, but also because of the similar culture we have with the Ukrainian nation. So for us, it's much easier to communicate with them, to support them, and to facilitate the support from the other nations, from our allies. So that's why we have established on the second day of the war the logistic hub here in Poland, in Rzeszów, J-Town, and through which over 90% of the total military support goes to the Ukraine. So I think it's extremely important. But this is not only important because we are close to the Ukraine, but we can also transfer some lessons learned and experience from Ukraine to other allies. And I think that we are just a great communication channel between Ukraine and NATO and other allies and partners which are supporting Ukraine. So this is extremely important, I think. And I couldn't imagine this scale of the military support without Polish territory and the Polish commitment.
Thank you. General von Wanigan?
Yeah, and I think it goes beyond the U.S. With NATO officially last July during the Washington summit, getting into the training and support of the Ukrainians. Not only does it bring bilateral cooperation between the United States and Poland that has gone on over the last 3 years, but now you have all 30 other nations working with Poland in Czechoslovakia and other places to support the Ukrainians. So without the firm cooperation from the Polish government and military that helps NATO every day up there accomplish this mission, it couldn't be done. So it's just essential. And from a NATO standpoint, certainly from SHAPE, we thank the Poles for this every day of allowing us to continue these activities. Thank you.
Another question we got from Lucia Cannon from New York in the United States. What is the state of reform of command and control system, both at the NATO level and at the national level? Are they compatible? General von Wagenen.
So it's a great question. Allied Command Operations, who are the military command structure that run NATO every day, we have just transformed really from the analog into Palantir and Maven Smart System. That IT system that's being fielded right now across NATO command structure is going to transform how the alliance does business every day militarily. So that's a huge step forward. Maven Smart System. It was chosen by 32 nations, but it's going to take us into the AI environment and give us information dominance, and that is being put into effect right now. How that ties to the other nations, many of these are national choices, but this was the choice of 32 for their military command structure.
Thank you, and maybe I will ask another question to General Dymanowski. The question came from Warsaw now, from Mr. Konrad Lukomski, who asked, in your view, what are key areas of improvement for military force on eastern flank?
I think that the very important element is building up these deterrence capabilities on the eastern flank of NATO. So starting from the first posture, from the military exercises, and then moving to the military capabilities. And I think that those are the most important because whenever we speak about the weapon systems, so the weapon systems which can do harm, because that's the best deterrent, the deterrence element. So that's why I think deep precision strike, but covering all the sensor to shooter. So it is first strategic intelligence, then of course command and control, and then deep precision strike. That's extremely important. Electronic warfare is becoming more and more important. This is one of the key lessons learned from war in Ukraine. So we have to put it on the front burner once again, because it has been kind of neglected for the last couple of years. And I also believe that there is no escape from dronization, so more unmanned systems in all domains, not only in aerial domain, plus, of course, emerging and disruptive technology, including artificial intelligence and, for example, quantum elements. They are mostly exported. But still, as we are here in the eastern flank of NATO, it is not only about technology, because technology itself is not enough to deter, especially to deter Russia, because Russia is always been about mass, numbers, and heaviness. So we need also mass and numbers. That's why we're building up military force here in Poland. So it is the right balance between quantity and quality.
The last question is related to one of our next panel discussion, because we will discuss the role of Northern Eastern corridor, Northern Eastern NATO flank. Can the Northern Eastern corridor become a key strategic partner for US and Europe? General von Wanigan, what's your view?
Well, I think they are. I mean, it's certainly, and if you start talking, yeah, you got to look at the eastern flank, northeastern flank. You really need to start at Telemark, and you need to go through Finland, the second newest member of NATO, obviously, into Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. These are strategic partners for the United States. The United States has, we've got committed forces there, rotational right now. Many of those nations are buying U.S. weapon systems right now, particularly, as Carol said, long-range strike, HIMARS, and other systems. And I think the strategic cooperation up there, not only for the United States but for NATO, is as we refine our defense plans of the eastern flank, this strategic alliance up there is getting even stronger. Thanks.
General Dymanowski, how do you see the role of Northern Eastern NATO flank in the whole new security architecture?
I fully concur with what was said by Matt. So I think this Nordic corridor is already a strategic partner for the US and the entire NATO, because it is the most exposed area. So we have to put a lot of attention to this area. But at the same time, this is not about focusing just on one region, because it's all about multi-regional approach, because Russia is never one-directional. They always think through the prism of different directions, so we have to be ready for challenges also in other regions. But this is an extremely important element. And as Matt said, this is about common exercises, about common equipment, common weapon systems, common procedures, and of course, common command and control in terms of organization and in terms of technology.
Short comment by Andrew?
Yeah, not just to comment about what was said, but just a thought as I was listening to both of you gentlemen, how important it is to have two flag officers, two senior leaders from the military, one Polish, one American, in this gathering at this moment, as we're trying to forge stronger, even stronger Polish-American relations. To have you gentlemen here share with us your views of what the key issues are and actually seeing the compatibility and the coming together of the two great organizations. So I wanted to thank you for your service, gentlemen, and most of all, for being here to support this great project.
So you replaced me. I want to say thank you. General Dymanowski, thank you so much. General Van Wan, again, it was great to have you here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.